My wife screamed that I was off the guest list until I apologized to her boss. I said, okay, and walked away. She thought she'd won. The next morning, her boss showed up at our door, pale and shaking, grabbing her arm. Diana, tell me you didn't just ban the chairman from his own event. My name is Evan Rivers. I'm 47 years old, and I've spent the last 22 years building something most people never see. Quiet wealth. Not the flashy kind. Not the kind that buys yachts or shows up in Forbes. The kind that moves through venture capital funds, trust structures, and holding companies like water through bedrock. Invisible, but foundational. My wife Diana never understood that part. To her, real power was visible. A corner office. A title with director in it. Invitations to galas where you could network with people who mattered. She was director of brand strategy at Holt Regional, a mid-sized consulting firm that punched above its weight in the Pacific Northwest. Gregory Holt, the president of the division, treated her like his golden child, and she ate it up. We had one son, William, 18 years old, brilliant kid, just got his acceptance letter to Caltech 3 weeks ago. Full ride. Diana told everyone at her office that she'd been the one pushing him toward excellence, attending every parent-teacher conference, managing his SAT prep. What she didn't mention was that I'd quietly paid for the $15,000 private tutoring program, or that I was the one who stayed up until 2 a.m. helping him revise his college essays. She didn't mention it because she didn't know. I never told her. Why? Because somewhere along the way, I'd learned that my contributions didn't earn me credit in her world. They earned me expectations. The Friday before the Spring Leadership Gala, I was in the garage packing donation boxes. Diana's event. Her baby. She'd been planning it for 6 months, and I'd helped where I could. I sourced the wine, 30 cases of Pinot Noir from a boutique vineyard in Willamette Valley. I coordinated the logistics for the silent auction. I even wrote a check for $25,000 to sponsor the opening reception. My name wasn't on the donor board. Hers was. I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood before I saw her. Sharp, fast, angry. She stormed into the garage, phone in one hand, the other yanking at the zipper of her dress like it had personally offended her. You're off the guest list, Diana announced. Her voice was cold, clipped. Not the tone you use with a partner. The tone you use with someone beneath you. I set down the box I was taping and looked up. What? You heard me, she said, adjusting her neckline in the reflection of the car window. You're off the guest list until you apologize to Gregory. I stood slowly, wiping packing tape residue off my hands. Apologize for what? She rolled her eyes like I was a child, asking why the sky was blue. For undermining him at the investors' dinner last month. He said you made him look incompetent in front of the board. I remember that dinner. Gregory had pitched a restructuring plan that would have gutted the firm's pension obligations to fund a flashy expansion into markets they didn't understand. I'd asked 3 questions. Polite ones. Specific ones. The kind that exposed the gaps in his thinking without ever raising my voice. The board had tabled the proposal. Gregory, apparently, hadn't forgiven me. I asked him to clarify his numbers. I said evenly. My voice is always calm. That's not undermining. That's due diligence. Diana's jaw tightened. He's my boss, Evan. He's the reason I'm where I am. And you embarrassed him. So you're uninviting me from an event I helped fund, I said. Not a question. A statement. Yes, she snapped. And you're going to apologize, or you're staying home. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd married 22 years ago had been different. Hungry, yes, but hungry for us. For the life we were building together. This woman, standing in a $3,000 dress I'd paid for, in a house I'd bought, planning an event I'd bankrolled. This woman looked at me like I was an inconvenience. Okay, I said. She blinked, paused. She'd expected a fight, maybe even wanted one, something she could spin into a story later. But I gave her nothing. That's it, Diana asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Just okay, just okay, I repeated. I turned back to the box, sealed it, and moved it to the hallway. I'll stay home. Her smirk was instant, triumphant. Good. Maybe you'll learn something. She left, heels clicking back through the house, back to her mirror, back to her world where she was the center of everything. I stood there in the garage for a long time after she was gone. Not angry, not hurt, just clear. For the first time in months, maybe years, I saw the situation for exactly what it was. That night, I didn't argue, didn't sulk. I slept soundly, and around 2 a.m., I got up, walked to my office, and made a phone call to my attorney. By morning, everything had already changed. Diana just didn't know it yet. The thing about building wealth quietly is that people forget you're building anything at all. They see the surface, the guy who packs boxes, smiles politely at office parties, doesn't make waves. What they don't see is the infrastructure beneath, the holding companies, the trust structures, the voting shares acquired through subsidiaries, so boring that even accountants glaze over when reviewing them. I've been building that infrastructure for 15 years. Long before Diana became director of branch strategy. Long before Gregory Holt even knew Holt Regional existed. It started simply enough. Back in 2008, during the financial collapse, I'd seen an opportunity. Venture capital firms were hemorrhaging value, desperate for liquidity. I'd quietly assembled a consortium, 3 silent partners, all from my network in institutional investing. We created a holding company, Evergreen Capital Trust. Boring name, deliberately boring. Over the next decade, Evergreen acquired minority stakes in 17 different firms. Small positions, 5% here, 8% there. Never enough to trigger disclosure requirements. Never enough to draw attention. Just enough to accumulate leverage. One of those firms was a struggling consulting group in Seattle. Regional footprint, decent client list, terrible management. We acquired 12% of their equity for pennies on the dollar. The firm restructured, brought in new leadership, and rebranded as Holt Regional. Gregory Holt became president 3 years ago. Diana joined 2 years after that. What neither of them knew, what nobody knew except my legal team, was that over the past 18 months, I've been consolidating those scattered positions, quietly buying out 2 of my original partners, absorbing their shares into the trust, restructuring the voting agreements. As of last Thursday, the day before Diana uninvited me from the gala, I controlled 62.4% of Holt Regional's board voting rights. Not directly, never directly, through proxy agreements, through the trust, through structures so layered that even forensic accountants would need weeks to trace the connections. And there was a clause, buried in the original shareholder agreement from 2009, a clause that had been sitting dormant for 15 years, waiting for the right moment. Section 12B, Chairman Rotation Protocol. If any single entity or affiliated group acquired majority voting control, the board bylaws automatically triggered a mandatory chairman election within 72 hours. I'd activated that clause with a single signature on Thursday night. The legal filing went through at 11:47 p.m. The board notification was time-stamped for 8:43 a.m. Saturday morning, precisely 1 hour before Diana's gala was scheduled to begin. Friday morning, I drove to a quiet office suite downtown. No nameplate, no signage, just a locked elevator and a badge I hadn't used publicly in months. My attorney Michael was already there, along with Liza, the trust administrator, and 2 other silent shareholders who'd flown in specifically for this meeting. The instrument is ready, Liza said, sliding a folder across the table. Your signature activates the proxy consolidation, effective immediately. Michael cleared his throat. To be clear, Evan, once you sign, you hold effective control over the board. The chairman rotation becomes automatic. No vote needed. It's structural. Will Diana be notified? I asked. Liza raised an eyebrow. Not yet. The board alert goes out tomorrow morning at 8:43. We timed it to coincide with the gala. I looked at the document. For lines of text, 1 signature line. The quietest takeover in corporate history, executed while my wife practiced her speech in front of a mirror. I signed. It's done, Liza said, collecting the papers. You now hold voting control of Holt Regional. We shook hands. I walked out into the afternoon sunlight. My phone buzzed. A text from William. Dad, just wanted to say thanks again for everything with Caltech. Mom's freaking out about her gala. You okay? I typed back. I'm fine, son. Enjoy your weekend. Proud of you. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and walked toward my car. Tomorrow, Diana would stand on a stage and talk about leadership while the ground shifted beneath her feet. She'd built her empire on a foundation she never bothered to examine. And that foundation had always been mine. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of brightness that makes everything feel sharper. Diana was up before dawn, moving through the house like a general preparing for battle. I heard her on the phone with the event coordinator at 6:15 a.m., barking instructions about orchid placement and lighting angles. I stayed in my office, door closed, watching the clock. The board notification would go out at 8:43. Diana's gala started at 10 o'clock. I'd given her exactly 77 minutes to process what was coming before she had to stand in front of 200 people and pretend everything was fine. At 7:30, Diana knocked on my office door. Didn't wait for an answer, just walked in. She was already dressed, hair perfect, makeup camera ready. "I'm leaving in 20 minutes," she said. Not hostile, almost pleasant. The tone you'd use with a neighbor you tolerated. "William's still asleep. Make sure he eats something." "I will," I said, looking up from my laptop. She hesitated in the doorway, studying me. "You're really not coming. You uninvited me," I reminded her gently. Diana's jaw tightened slightly, but she recovered. "Right. Well, it's probably for the best anyway. Gregory's already stressed enough without having to manage you." "Manage me?" I repeated. Not a question, just letting the words hang there. "You know what I mean," she said, waving dismissively. "You ask too many questions. You make people uncomfortable." I nodded slowly. "I'll try to work on that." She left without another word. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway, the garage door opening, her car starting and pulling away. Silence settled over the house. At 8:43 a.m., I refreshed my email. There it was. Board notification from Holt Regional's legal counsel. Subject line, governance realignment and chairman appointment. I opened it, scanned the familiar language. Effective immediately. Proxy consolidation. Mandatory board restructuring per Section 12B. My phone rang. "Michael, my attorney." "It's live," he said simply. "Board members are getting the notification now. Gregory's assistant probably has it flagged as urgent." "Thanks, Michael," I said. "Keep me posted." I hung up and walked to the kitchen. Made coffee. Scrambled eggs for William when he came downstairs at 9:15, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Where's Mom?" he asked, sliding into a chair. "At her gala," I said, setting a plate in front of him. "Big day for her." William nodded, scrolling through his phone. Then he looked up, something uncertain in his expression. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always," I said. "Why does Mom treat you like that?" His voice was quiet, careful. I sat down across from him. "Like what?" "Like I don't know. Like you don't matter." He looked down at his plate. "I heard her on the phone yesterday. She was talking to someone about you. Said you were just background support. That you didn't understand real leadership." I took a breath. "Steady. What do you think, William?" He met my eyes. "I think she has no idea what you actually do." I smiled slightly. "You're a smart kid. Smarter than I was at 18. "Are you guys okay?" he asked. "You and Mom." I considered the question. Honest answer or comfortable lie? I chose honest. "No," I said simply. "We're not. But that's not your weight to carry. You focus on Caltech. On building your own life." William nodded slowly. "Okay." My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Then I realized it was Gregory's assistant. "Mr. Rivers, urgent. Mr. Holt needs to speak with you immediately regarding board matters. Please call." I set the phone down. Let's sit there. No rush. At the Sheraton Grand downtown, Diana was in her element. The ballroom was exactly as Diana had envisioned. Crystal chandeliers catching morning light through floor-to-ceiling windows. Tables draped in champagne linens. Centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus. The branding wall behind the stage glowed with the Holt Regional logo, perfectly lit for photos. Diana moved through the space like she owned it, adjusting name cards, snapping at the catering manager about wine temperature, checking her reflection in every available surface. She was radiant, powerful, completely in control. Gregory arrived at 9:20, looking off. His tie was crooked, hair uncombed, face pale under too much foundation. Diana noticed immediately. "Gregory," she said, walking over with her brightest smile. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Everything okay?" He stared at her for a long moment. "Diana, we need to talk." "Now." "Can it wait?" she asked, laughing lightly. "We go live in 40 minutes and I still need to—" "No," Gregory interrupted. His voice was strained, tight. "It can't wait." Something in his tone made her pause. "What's wrong?" Gregory pulled out his phone, hands trembling slightly. Pulled up an email. Turned the screen toward her. Diana, read the subject line. Then the first paragraph. Then the second. Her smile faltered. What is this? She whispered. Board notification, Gregory said. Came through at 8:43 this morning. Governance realignment. Your husband just became chairman of the board. Diana's face went blank. That's not possible. It's already done, Gregory said, his voice rising slightly. Proxy consolidation. He controls over 60% of voting shares. Through some trust structure nobody even knew existed. Diana grabbed the phone, scrolling frantically. This has to be a mistake. Evan doesn't even attend board meetings. He has nothing to do with. He has everything to do with it. Gregory cut her off. He's been building this for years. The legal team confirmed it 20 minutes ago. Diana's breathing quickened. But he never said anything. He never. Gregory stepped closer, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. Diana, tell me you didn't just ban the chairman from his own gala. The words hit like ice water. Diana's eyes widened. I didn't know. How could I have known? You should have asked, Gregory hissed. You should have checked. Do you understand what this looks like? The optics alone. I'll call him, Diana said, fumbling for her phone. I'll fix this. It's too late, Gregory said flatly. The notification is public. Board members are already asking questions. Some are asking if this was retaliation. If you deliberately excluded him because you knew what was coming. That's insane, Diana said, her voice rising. I had no idea what was coming. Then you should have, Gregory snapped. Then he caught himself, lowered his voice. Look, we have 200 people arriving in 30 minutes. You need to pull yourself together. Diana nodded mechanically, but her hands were shaking. Around them, the ballroom buzzed with final preparations. Waiters circulated with champagne flutes. The AV crew tested microphones. Everything perfect. Everything planned. Everything falling apart. My phone rang at 10:47 a.m. Diana. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Evan. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the tremor underneath. We need to talk. Now. I'm listening, I said, leaning back in my office chair. Not over the phone, Diana said quickly. Can you come down here? To the hotel. You uninvited me from the event, I reminded her. Remember? I'm not on the guest list. There was a pause. A long one. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth. Evan, please. This is serious. I know it is, I said calmly. I received the same board notification you did. Her breath caught. You knew. You knew about this, and you didn't tell me. You never asked, I said simply. In 22 years of marriage, Diana, you never once asked me what I actually did for work. You assumed it was boring. Assumed it didn't matter. That's not fair, she said, her voice rising slightly. Isn't it? I asked. When's the last time you asked about my day? When's the last time you cared about anything I was working on? Silence. She had no answer because there was no answer. The gala starts in 13 minutes, I said, checking my watch. You should probably get ready for your speech. Evan, don't do this. Diana's voice broke slightly. Please. Gregory is panicking. The board members are asking questions. I need you here. No, I said quietly. You need me to fix a problem you created. That's different. I didn't create this, she protested. I didn't know you were. You created this the moment you decided I wasn't important enough to include. I interrupted. My voice remained level. Steady. You made a choice, Diana. Now you live with it. So that's it, she asked. You're just going to let me stand up there and humiliate myself? You did that already, I said. I'm just not stopping it. I hung up, set the phone on my desk, stood and walked to the kitchen where William was finishing breakfast. Everything okay? He asked, looking up from his plate. Everything's fine, I said. Want to go for a drive? William's eyes narrowed slightly. Where to? Downtown, I said. I think it's time you saw what your old man actually does for a living. 20 minutes later, we pulled into the parking garage beneath the Sheraton Grand. William looked confused. Isn't this where Mom's event is? It is, I confirmed, locking the car. I thought you weren't invited, William said. I wasn't, I said, walking toward the elevator. But that was before I became chairman of the board. William stopped walking. Wait, what? I pressed the elevator button. I'll explain on the way up. By the time we reached the executive level, I'd given William the abbreviated version. The trust. The holding company. The proxy consolidation. He listened in silence, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something like pride. "So you've been planning this for how long?" he asked as we stepped into the hallway. 15 years, I said. Give or take. And Mom had no idea. Your mother sees what she wants to see, I said. We stopped outside the ballroom doors. I could hear Diana's voice inside, amplified through speakers. She was mid-speech. I checked my watch. 11:03 a.m. William looked at me. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, straightening my collar, "I go introduce myself to the board. Officially." I pushed open the door. Diana was on stage, mid-sentence, talking about innovation and leadership. She saw me immediately. Her words stumbled, stopped. The entire room turned to look. Gregory, standing near the side of the stage, went completely white. I walked down the center aisle, William beside me, and took a seat at the table marked Board Reserved. I didn't say anything, didn't wave, just sat down. Diana stood frozen at the podium, mic still hot, 200 people staring at her, waiting for her to continue. She couldn't. The silence in the ballroom stretched for what felt like minutes, but was probably only 10 seconds. Diana gripped the podium, her knuckles white. Her eyes locked on mine, wide with something between shock and fury. Gregory moved first. He practically sprinted from the side of the stage toward my table, his face a mixture of panic and forced professionalism. He leaned down, his voice a harsh whisper. "Evan, what are you doing here?" "Attending a company event," I said calmly. "Is there a problem?" "You weren't on the guest list," Gregory hissed. "I'm chairman of the board," I replied evenly. "I don't need to be on a guest list." Gregory's jaw worked soundlessly for a moment. Then he turned toward the stage, gesturing urgently at Diana to continue. She blinked, seemed to remember where she was, and forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. "I apologize for the interruption," Diana said into the mic, her voice strained. "As I was saying, leadership requires vision. It requires the ability to see beyond the immediate and plan for the future." The irony wasn't lost on me, or apparently on several board members seated nearby, who exchanged knowing glances. Diana pushed through the rest of her speech. It was polished, rehearsed, but the energy had shifted. People weren't listening anymore. They were whispering to each other, checking phones, glancing between Diana on stage and me in the audience. When she finished, the applause was polite but muted. She walked off stage stiffly, disappearing through a side door. Gregory followed. Within minutes, 3 board members approached my table. I stood, shook hands, made introductions. William sat quietly beside me, observing everything. "Evan," said Patricia Vance, the longest-serving board member, "I think we need to have a conversation. Several of us have questions about the notification this morning." "Of course," I said. "I'm available whenever you'd like to meet." "How about now?" she suggested, glancing toward a private conference room off the main ballroom. "Informally." "That works," I said. I looked at William. "You okay here for a bit?" "I'm good," Daddy said. I followed Patricia and 2 other board members into the conference room. We sat around a small table. No formal agenda, just direct questions. "Walk us through this," Patricia said. "The trust structure, the proxy consolidation. How long has this been in motion?" I explained, clearly, methodically. The 2008 opportunity, the formation of Evergreen Capital Trust, the gradual accumulation of equity positions, the restructuring 18 months ago, the activation of Section 12B last Thursday. They listened without interrupting. When I finished, one of the other board members, Thomas Lynn, leaned forward. "You've been a shareholder for 15 years and never disclosed it." "I disclosed everything required by law," I said. "The positions were held through a trust structure that didn't trigger reporting thresholds until the recent consolidation." "And your wife," Patricia said carefully. "She works here." She had no idea. "No," I said simply. "We don't discuss my work at home." She never asked. Thomas frowned. "That seems unusual." "Perhaps," I said, "but it's the truth." Patricia sat back, studying me. "Evan, I'm going to be direct. This looks bad. Your wife publicly uninvited you from this event. Now you show up as chairman. People are going to assume this is retaliation." "Is it?" Thomas asked bluntly. I met his eyes. "No. The board notification was filed Thursday night. Diana uninvited me Friday afternoon. The timing is unfortunate, but the sequence is clear. Still, Patricia said, the optics are problematic. I understand, I said, but I'm not here to create drama. I'm here to ensure this company operates with proper governance and fiduciary responsibility. Patricia and Thomas exchanged a look. Some unspoken communication passed between them. All right, Patricia said finally. We'll schedule a formal board meeting for next week. In the meantime, I suggest you and Gregory have a conversation. Clear the air. Happy to, I said, standing. As I walked back into the ballroom, I saw Diana standing near the registration table. She was on her phone, her back to the room, shoulders rigid. Gregory stood a few feet away, arms crossed, looking like a man watching his career implode in real time. William caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small nod. I nodded back. The first move was complete. Now came the harder part. Watching everything Diana had built on false assumptions slowly collapse under the weight of reality. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of silence that follows earthquakes. I was up at 6, making coffee in a kitchen that felt different now. Diana hadn't come home until after midnight. I'd heard her car in the driveway, heard her heels on the hardwood, heard the guest bedroom door close. Not our bedroom. The guest room. I didn't go to her. Didn't ask how she was. That wasn't cruelty. It was boundary setting. William came down around 8, already dressed. He had plans to meet friends before heading back to his college prep program for finals week. Mom's still asleep? He asked, grabbing juice from the fridge. In the guest room, I said. William nodded slowly. She looked rough yesterday. After you left. I imagine she did, I said, sipping my coffee. Some of her coworkers were talking. William said carefully. I heard them in the lobby. They weren't being quiet. What were they saying? That she banned her own husband from an event without knowing he was chairman, William said. That it made her look incompetent. That Gregory's probably going to throw her under the bus to save himself. I absorbed this. How do you feel about that? William set down his glass. Honestly, I feel bad for her. But also, she kind of did this to herself, didn't she? Yes, I said simply. She did. Are you getting divorced? William asked. The same question he'd danced around yesterday. Probably, I said. Would that bother you? William thought about it. Really thought. It would have bothered me a year ago. But I've been watching how she treats you. How she talks to you. Dad, she doesn't respect you. And I don't think that's going to change. You're right, I said. It's not. William grabbed his backpack. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you did yesterday, showing up, taking your seat, that took guts. Thanks, son, I said. After William left, I went to my office and opened my laptop. 17 emails. Most from board members requesting meetings. 2 from the legal team, confirming procedural items. 1 from Gregory's assistant marked urgent. I opened Gregory's email first. Evan, we need to meet before the board session on Tuesday. There are optics issues we need to address. Please call my office to schedule. Gregory. Optics issues. Translation. Gregory needed to figure out how to spin this, so he didn't look like an idiot for letting his star employee ban the chairman from a company event. I deleted the email. Around 10, I heard movement upstairs. Water running. Diana getting ready for the day. 20 minutes later, she appeared in my office doorway. No makeup. Hair pulled back. She looked exhausted. We need to talk, Diana said quietly. All right, I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. She sat, folded her hands in her lap. I didn't know Evan. I swear I didn't know about any of it. The trust. The shares. The board seat. None of it. I know, I said. Then why didn't you tell me? Her voice was soft. Hurt. Because you never asked, I said. In 22 years, Diana, you never once inquired about what I actually did. You knew I worked in venture capital. That was enough for you. The details were boring. That's not fair, she said. It's completely fair, I replied calmly. You made assumptions about what mattered, about who mattered, and you built your entire career on a foundation you never bothered to examine. Diana's jaw tightened. So this is revenge? You're punishing me for not paying attention. No, I said. This is consequence. I didn't activate the board restructuring because you uninvited me. I activated it because it was time. The timing was unfortunate, but it wasn't strategic. She stared at me for a long moment. Gregory wants me to resign. That caught my attention. He told you that. Last night, Diana said. He called me at 11. Said my position had become untenable. that the board would likely ask for my resignation at Tuesday's meeting anyway, so I should get ahead of it. And what did you say? I told him to go to hell, Diana said, a flash of her old fire returning. I've given that company 7 years. I built the entire brand strategy division from nothing, and he wants me to quietly disappear because his ego got bruised. Good, I said. She blinked. Good. You should fight, I said. Not for Gregory. For yourself. If you resign now, you're admitting fault. Admitting you did something wrong. Did you? Diana hesitated. An invited you. That was wrong. Yes, I agreed. But that's a personal issue, not a professional one. You didn't violate any company policy. You didn't break any rules. You made a social miscalculation. That's not grounds for termination. Diana looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. Why are you helping me? I'm not helping you, I said. I'm telling you the truth. What you do with it is up to you. She sat there for another minute, processing, then stood slowly. The board meeting is Tuesday at 2. Yes, I said. Will you be there? Diana asked. As chairman, I said. Yes. She nodded. Turned to leave. Stopped at the door. Evan, are we going to make it? As a marriage? I met her eyes. No, we're not. She flinched, but didn't argue. Just walked out, closing the door softly behind her. Monday morning, Diana left the house at 7. Didn't say goodbye. Just grabbed her briefcase and drove to the office like it was any other day. I knew better. This was her trying to reclaim control. To show up, head high, and dare anyone to question her. I respected it, even if it wouldn't work. I spent the morning reviewing documents for the board meeting. Financial reports, governance protocols, background on every board member. By noon, I had a complete picture of what I was walking into. My phone rang. Michael, my attorney. Evan, we have a development, he said. Gregory's team filed a motion this morning. They're requesting your recusal from tomorrow's board meeting. I leaned back in my chair. On what grounds? Conflict of interest, Michael said. They're arguing that because you're married to an employee under review, you can't participate in personnel decisions. Diana's not under review, I said. She hasn't been formally accused of anything. Not yet, Michael said carefully. But Gregory's building a case. Insubordination. Unauthorized decision-making regarding event attendance. Damaging company reputation. He's making her the scapegoat, I said. Exactly, Michael confirmed. If he can force your recusal and push Diana out, he saves his own position. Makes it look like the problem was her, not him. I stood, pacing. Can they actually force my recusal? Technically, yes, Michael said, if enough board members vote for it. But I doubt they will. You control the majority voting shares. Recusal motions require unanimous consent of non-conflicted members. So it's theater, I said. Political theater, Michael agreed. Gregory's trying to look proactive. Trying to demonstrate leadership. It won't work, I said. No, Michael said. It won't. But it'll make tomorrow interesting. After we hung up, I sat for a long time thinking. Diana was being set up. Gregory was protecting himself by sacrificing her. And the board would probably go along with it, because it was cleaner than admitting their president had terrible judgment. I could stop it. One word from me as chairman, and Diana's position would be secure. But should I? She'd spent years dismissing me, belittling my work, treating me like expensive furniture. And when her boss told her to exclude me, she'd done it without hesitation. But she was also the mother of my son, the woman I'd built a life with, even if that life had rotted from the inside. My phone buzzed. Text from William. Dad, Mom called. She's freaking out. Said Gregory's trying to fire her. Is that true? I typed back. It's complicated. I'll handle it. Are you going to help her? I stared at that question for a long time. Finally typed. I'm going to do what's right. Not sure that's the same thing. At 4 in the afternoon, Diana came home early. I heard her in the kitchen, opening wine. I walked in. She was standing at the counter, glass already half empty. Gregory filed a motion to recuse you from the board meeting, Diana said without preamble. His assistant accidentally copied me on the email. I know, I said. He's going to try to fire me, Diana said. Use me as the fall guy for his own incompetence. I know, I said again. Diana looked at me, something desperate in her eyes. Evan, I know I don't deserve to ask, but can you stop this? As chairman, I poured myself a glass of water, leaned against the counter opposite her. Yes, I could stop it. Will you? She asked. Why should I? I asked calmly. Diana set down her wine glass. Because despite everything, we're still married. Because I'm the mother of your son. Because... She trailed off. Because what? I pressed. Because I'm sorry, Diana said quietly. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I took you for granted. I'm sorry I let Gregory convince me you didn't matter. I studied her face. She meant it. In this moment, she genuinely meant it. But would she mean it tomorrow? Next week? Next year? I'll think about it, I said. Evan. That's my answer, Diana, I said firmly. I'll think about it. The board meets tomorrow at 2. I'll decide before then. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Nodded. Okay. I walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat in the dark. Tomorrow would determine a lot of things. Diana's career, my marriage, the future of Holt Regional, and I still didn't know which way I was going to go. Tuesday at 2 o'clock, I walked into the Holt Regional Conference Room. 12 seats around a polished table. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle. 7 board members already seated. Gregory at the head of the table, looking like a man who'd rehearsed his performance for hours. Diana sat in a chair along the wall, not at the table, a spectator at her own trial. I took the seat directly across from Gregory, set down my folder, made eye contact with each board member in turn. Let's begin, I said simply. Gregory cleared his throat. Before we proceed, I'd like to formally request Chairman Rivers recuse himself from personnel discussions regarding his wife, Diana Rivers. Clear conflict of interest. Patricia Vance, sitting to my right, spoke up. Gregory, recusal requires unanimous consent of non-conflicted board members. I don't consent. Thomas Lynn nodded. Neither do I. Evan holds majority voting shares. His participation is required for quorum on major decisions. Gregory's jaw tightened. Then I move we table personnel matters until... Motion denied, I said calmly. What's the actual issue here, Gregory? He shuffled papers, buying time. Diana Rivers acted unilaterally to exclude a key stakeholder, yourself, from a major corporate event. This decision was made without board consultation and created significant reputational damage. Did it? I asked. Gregory blinked. Excuse me. Did it create reputational damage? I repeated. To the company? The optics, Gregory started. The optics, I interrupted, are that an employee made a social miscalculation, not a corporate violation. Diana didn't breach any company policy. She didn't violate fiduciary duty. She uninvited me from a gala. That's a personal issue. But you're the chairman, Gregory protested. I became chairman after she uninvited me, I said. The board notification was filed Thursday night. She made her decision Friday afternoon. She had no way of knowing. Patricia leaned forward. Evan's right. There's no policy violation here. Gregory's face reddened. She made the company look foolish. No, I said quietly. You made the company look foolish. You're the one who told her to uninvite me. You're the one who felt threatened by basic fiduciary questions at an investor dinner. You're the one trying to sacrifice an employee to cover your own insecurity. The room went silent. Gregory's mouth opened. Closed. No words came out. I have emails, I continued, pulling a folder from my briefcase. Correspondence between you and Diana from 3 months ago. You specifically instructed her to limit my involvement in company events. Said I was too analytical and made investors uncomfortable. Would you like me to read them aloud? Gregory went pale. Those were taken out of context. Were they? I asked. Because they seemed pretty clear to me. Thomas Lynn spoke up. Gregory, is this true? Did you instruct Diana to exclude Evan? Gregory stammered. I made a suggestion. A recommendation based on ego, I said flatly. Based on the fact that I asked questions you couldn't answer. And rather than improve your proposals, you tried to remove the person asking questions. Patricia looked at Gregory with something like disgust. That's extraordinarily poor leadership. I turned to Diana, still sitting against the wall. Diana, stand up. She stood slowly, uncertain. Come sit at the table, I said, gesturing to the empty chair beside me. Diana walked over, sat down. Her hands were shaking. I looked around the table. Diana made a mistake. She should have questioned Gregory's instructions instead of following them blindly. But that's a learning opportunity, not a termination offense. Agreed, Patricia said. Thomas nodded. Agreed. One by one, The other board members voiced agreement. Gregory sat frozen, watching his plan collapse. Now, I said, turning to Gregory, let's talk about your performance. Specifically, the restructuring proposal you presented in September. The one that would have over-leveraged this company's balance sheet by 40%. Want to walk us through that? Gregory's face went from pale to gray. That was tabled for further review. It was tabled because it was reckless, I said. And I think this board needs to seriously evaluate whether you're the right person to lead this division. Patricia's eyes gleamed. I move we open a formal review of the president's performance and strategic decision-making. Seconded, Thomas said immediately. The vote was unanimous. Gregory sat in stunned silence, as his authority evaporated in real time. The meeting adjourned 40 minutes later. Diana and I walked out together, neither of us speaking until we reached the parking garage. Thank you, Diana said quietly. Don't thank me, I said. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was right. I know, she said. But still, thank you. I unlocked my car. Diana, my attorney will contact you next week. About the divorce. Her face crumpled slightly. So that's really it. That's really it. I confirmed. I drove away, leaving her standing in the garage. In my rearview mirror, I saw her sink onto a concrete barrier, head in her hands. I felt something. Not quite sympathy. Not quite satisfaction. Just closure. 8 months after the board meeting, my life looked completely different. The divorce was finalized in November. Clean split. Diana kept the house. I didn't want it anyway. I bought a condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Elliott Bay. Smaller. Simpler. Mine. Diana kept her position at Holt Regional, but Gregory was quietly removed 3 months after our confrontation. The board installed a new president, someone with actual operational experience. Diana reported to him now. From what I heard through William, she'd become more cautious, more deliberate, less arrogant. Good for her. William was thriving at Caltech. We talked twice a week. He'd started a robotics project with 3 other freshmen and was already getting interest from tech companies for summer internships. The trust fund I'd set up meant he could focus on learning instead of worrying about loans. As for me, I stepped into the chairman role fully, restructured 3 underperforming divisions, brought in new talent, implemented governance protocols that actually meant something. The company's stock price increased 19% in 6 months. I also started dating. Nothing serious yet. A woman named Sarah, an architect I'd met through a friend. She asked questions, real questions, about my work, my interests, my life. It was refreshing. One afternoon in late March, I was having coffee downtown when I saw Diana. She was with a man, not romantic, based on her body language. Professional. They were reviewing documents at a corner table. She looked up, saw me. Our eyes met. She gave a small nod. I nodded back. No hostility. No longing. Just acknowledgement. We'd been married for 22 years, built a life, raised a son, and then discovered we'd been strangers the entire time. That evening, William called. Dad, I got my summer internship offer. Tesla, Autonomous Systems Division. That's incredible, I said, genuinely proud. You earned it. I know, William said, laughing. But I also know you helped. The trust fund, the connections, all of it. You still had to do the work, I reminded him. Yeah, William agreed. Hey, Dad. Yeah. I'm glad you left, Mom, he said. I know that sounds harsh, but you're happier now. I can hear it in your voice. I looked out my window at the city lights reflecting off the water. I am happier. Good, William said. You deserve to be. After we hung up, I sat for a while in the quiet. Thought about the man I'd been a year ago, packing boxes for a gala I wasn't invited to, accepting dismissal as normal, living small in a house that should have felt like home. That man was gone, and I didn't miss him. I'd built something real, not just wealth, though that helped, but respect, boundaries, a life where my contributions mattered because I demanded they matter. Diana had taught me something valuable in the end. Silence isn't strength. Acceptance isn't love. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop waiting for people to see your worth and start showing them what happens when they don't. I poured myself a glass of wine, toasted the empty room, and smiled. The quiet takeover was complete, and the chairman, finally, fully, was home.